On June 26, 1907, in Tiflis, the capital of Georgia, a squad of Cossack cavalry was escorting a horse-drawn cash carriage toward the sweltering central square. Hidden around the route were 20 revolutionaries, with guns and grenades tucked beneath their clothes. All they needed was one order from their leader, and the attack would begin in a storm of bullets and explosions. That year, Joseph was 29 years old. He was about to lead a bank robbery that would shock the world and land on the front pages of major newspapers the very next day. In the years to come, people would know him better by another name: Stalin. The story goes back to 1878, when Stalin was born in Gori, an ancient town in Georgia. His father, Vissarion, was a shoemaker. Thanks to his skill at the trade, the family was once quite well off. They had their own shop and even hired workers. But before Stalin was born, the family had already suffered a terrible blow. Their first 2 sons both died in infancy. The loss left Vissarion deeply broken. He began drinking heavily and, in time, turned into a miserable alcoholic. By the time Stalin was born, the family was already in decline. Vissarion's constant drinking ruined his shoemaking business, and he often beat his wife and child. Stalin's mother, Ekaterine, was a very traditional Georgian woman. She was deeply religious and believed that all the suffering in the world was a test from God, so she never openly complained about her husband. There was only one issue on which she dared to defy him: their son's education. Vissarion wanted Stalin to grow up and become a shoemaker like himself. But Ekaterine hoped her son would one day become a priest, and she insisted on sending him to a church school. In 1884, Vissarion left home, and the full weight of survival fell on the shoulders of the unfortunate Ekaterine. When Stalin was 10 years old, he was sent to the church school in Gori. It is hard for people today to imagine, but at first, Stalin was one of the best students in the school. On a report card where the highest mark was 5, he earned almost nothing but 5s and 4s. He was also especially gifted in singing and recitation, and he became one of the teacher's favorite boys in the choir. If Stalin had simply gone on growing up that way, he might well have become a respected priest. But in the end, fate led him down a very different path. When he was 13, he read Charles Darwin's On the Origin of Species. The ideas in the book shook him so deeply that he lay awake the entire night. And as he read more and more, his faith in God began to weaken. At the age of 16, Stalin graduated from the theological school in his hometown and went on to study at the Tiflis Theological Seminary. Tiflis was a city both rich and wild. In the tide of a new age, nationalism and socialism were spreading across the land. Amid this clash of ideas, Stalin began to write poetry. He turned his thoughts, questions, and hopes about society into poems, and some of them were published in newspapers. His poems were widely read and later included in various poetry collections. His singing also improved even more, reaching almost the level of a tenor. It is fair to say that Stalin could have become an excellent poet or singer. But fate seemed determined to lead him towards something very different. While studying at the seminary, Stalin joined an underground reading circle. The group passed around many books that were banned by the school. It was there that Stalin first read Das Kapital, and he was deeply drawn in by what he found in its pages. After finishing Das Kapital, Stalin and a few classmates secretly slipped out of the seminary to attend a meeting of railway workers. It was held in a hidden hut down the hill, where people gathered in secret. The moment Stalin pushed open that door, his path was already set. He was never going to become a priest, a poet, or a singer. Only one future lay before him: to become a Marxist, a communist, and a revolutionary. After that, Stalin chose to stay at the seminary, reading the Bible by day and studying Das Kapital by night. He adapted remarkably well to this split life, but in the end, secrets cannot stay hidden forever. In 1899, one of the monks searched his bookcase and found the banned books. Soon after, Stalin was expelled, officially on the grounds that he had missed his exams. Today, few people could tell you that Monk's name, yet without meaning to, he helped change history in a profound way. Stalin later recalled that this was the most painful period of his life. He first returned to Gori and lived with his mother for a while, then went back to Tiflis, where he found work at the observatory. During this time, Stalin read works by an author writing under the pen name Tulin, and he was deeply drawn to the idea of seizing power through armed struggle. At the time, Stalin did not know who Tulin really was, yet he was already telling his friends, "I must meet him." That writer was none other than Lenin, who would go on to lead the October Revolution and establish the first socialist state in human history. Inspired by Lenin, Stalin joined the Russian Social Democratic Labour Party, the movement that would later become the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. Before long, his talent stood out, and at just 22, he was elected to the Tiflis Committee. Under Lenin's influence, Stalin came to believe that there was no way to overthrow Tsarist rule without violence, and that happened to be something he was good at. From an early age, he had learned how to fight in his hometown, and he could even lead groups of boys in street brawls. Now those skills were finally being put to use. Stalin also had a magnetic kind of personal charm that was hard to resist. It allowed him to gather a loyal circle of followers with ease, most of them young workers and Marxists. Over the next few years, they became one of the most active armed groups in the Caucasus. They organized strikes, robbed banks, attacked prisons, and clashed with the police in bloody confrontations. Stalin also understood the power of propaganda. Using printing presses they had smuggled in or stolen, the group produced large numbers of leaflets and spread revolutionary ideas everywhere they went. By 1905, at the Battle of Tsushima in the Russo-Japanese War, Russia's Baltic fleet had been almost completely destroyed. As Russia suffered defeat after defeat on the battlefield, voices against the Tsar grew louder across the country. When the war ended, the Tsar moved quickly to crush the opposition, and the Russian Social Democratic Labour Party was dealt a heavy blow. In December 1905, Stalin travelled to Tampere, Finland, with 40 other delegates. He was deeply excited because at last he was going to meet the man whose name he had seen countless times in the newspapers, Vladimir Lenin. But when he first saw Lenin, Stalin's reaction was disappointment. "I saw a man who looked completely ordinary. He was shorter than average and looked no different from any common person. It was hard for me to imagine that the man standing in front of me was the legendary Lenin, and yet once Lenin began to speak, Stalin was completely won over." Lenin's speech was highly logical. His ideas showed a wide view of history, and his conclusions were both sharp and simple. Stalin later praised him with these words, "What a mountain eagle of a man." At the end of the speech, Lenin said, "The next 10 years will be the best 10 years for the Russian Revolution, and our most urgent task is to build an armed force directly under the party." But one key question remained. Where would the money come from? During a break in the meeting, Stalin went to find Lenin. He was not a man of polished words, so he spoke plainly. "Leave the funding to me. I'll get you the rubles. As for how you use them, that's up to you." This was their first meeting, their first conversation, and just like that, a friendship that would last for more than 20 years began. In future videos, we'll show how Stalin and his comrades overthrew Tsarist rule and built the Soviet Union, why he later turned against his former comrades, launched the Great Purge, and caused the Great Famine in Ukraine, and how he went on to lead the Soviet Union in beating back Nazi Germany's invasion. If you enjoy this series, be sure to subscribe.